Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by CFFC Flyweight champion Sean Santella. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How's everything going?
Everything's going good. Sean, you got a fight coming up at CFFC, that's hard to say, CFFC 34. How's training going for the fight?
Training's going great. We're just finishing up the camp pretty much. This week will probably be my last hard week, and then it's pretty much just getting my weight down.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you the head jiu-jitsu instructor at AMA?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. Now, with you having a fight coming up, what does that do for teaching classes and also you working with some of the other guys who have fights coming up? You know, when do you start to taper that down and focus solely on your fight?
I mean, my schedule's pretty good there. I usually just teach at night, so it's just a couple hours here and there. So, you know, I'm still teaching all the way up until fight. It helps with keeping the weight down and drilling. You know, I just kind of hold back on the live. And when I do go live, I'll just make sure that I'm staying with guys closer to my size when we do go live. So, you know, I think teaching all the way up until the fight is actually going to help me, and it's benefited me over the last couple of years, only because it's sharpening all my tools, especially, you know, with the jiu-jitsu. It makes my weight cut easier, you know, so.
Mm-hmm. Who are you a black belt under?
I'm a black belt under Jamie Cruz.
Oh, okay. And also, how much do you train in the gi?
I do a lot of my training in the gi. Pretty much Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays I train in the gi. Those are also the days that I teach the gi class. So pretty much the days that I teach, I'll roll with the gi. And then the Monday, Wednesday is no gi. So we work on, you know, just regular no gi jiu-jitsu. And then Friday is no gi for MMA, which is more MMA specific.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, there's this, you know, big debate going around out there. You know, obviously, Metamoris 3 just happened, Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, I was just there, actually.
Yeah, yep. I was going to bring that up in a second, but that match, you know, he's always been a guy who said he got rid of the gi for MMA. Like, you know, people aren't wearing it, so why should we be training for it if people aren't wearing it? But then he was wearing gi pants when he fought against Royler Gracie. So I'm just curious, why do you train in the gi still? I mean, obviously, you're the head instructor for jiu-jitsu at your gym, but is that the main reason why you train in the gi, or is there another specific reason why you still use the gi, even though you can't really use it in MMA?
No, I mean, I actually study Eddie's rubber guard, mm-hmm. and that's pretty much my game for no-gi jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. My gi and my no-gi game are completely different, but I make sure that a lot of it kind of, you know, transfers over to MMA. So even when I'm training in the gi, I don't necessarily always grab the gi. You know, obviously for certain chokes I will, but for control positions I don't. But to me, it's just the art in general. You know, sucking up as much knowledge as you can, you know, from, you know, whether it's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, just the techniques and everything like that. You know, it's just a whole other world, you know. But as far as Eddie wearing, yeah, Eddie's not big on the top. He still wears the gi pants because it eliminates the sweat factor when he plays his game, especially the half guard game. Mm-hmm. You know, he pretty much just got rid of the lapel and stuff like that up top. So. But, you know, it's more about just understanding the actual art of jiu-jitsu, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, what were your thoughts about that match? Because obviously it goes down in the history books as a draw, but clearly Eddie Bravo, had it been a point system, would have ran away with that match, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm actually good friends with Royler. I was actually out there because one of my clients is actually Royler Gracie's attorney.
Oh,
he set up his contract. That's how we ended up actually going out there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we went to dinner and stuff like that after, and we spoke. So I've met Royler, you know, a bunch of times. We've all gone out, you know, numerous of times and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Me personally, but like I said, I also know Eddie, and I trained his system. I think that, you know, Eddie controlled all the positions and didn't give Royler a chance to even attack. So, you know, anybody that knows jiu-jitsu, as much as it says it was a draw,
right.
Anybody that understands jiu-jitsu knows who, you know, won the match if they look at it. You know what I mean? Eddie controlled the position, he swept him, had a couple submission attempts, you know. Now, whether if Eddie didn't have the gi pants on,
right.
I think Royler would have been able to pass. But I mean, nobody understands Eddie's game until you've actually trained with Eddie. Nobody understands his squeeze. His legs are so strong, and he's been doing it for 20 years, pretty much. I mean, that's his game. So, to prepare for Eddie, even if you grab somebody that knows the rubber guard and knows the half guard game, it's just not the same. You can't train to prepare for that squeeze, that constant, pretty much a 20-minute squeeze on that leg,
Definitely. Now, do you like the submission-only rules that Metamoris uses? They've eliminated the points, and so it's either you submit the guy, or if there's no submission, it's a draw. Do you like that, or would you like the point system? Because you can make the case that match looks totally different had it been on a point system. Maybe maybe people would have been doing stuff differently. I don't really know the exact wording for it, but maybe the match would have looked different had it been on a point system. Do you like the way Metamoris is doing it, just having submission only?
I mean, I do enjoy it because to me the whole point of jiu-jitsu is to submit them,
Right.
So to me, I'm always submission before position. So I'm always, trying to jump on top of every submission I get from every position. I'm not big on the points. I understand that, for sport jiu-jitsu, a lot of times you get two really good guys, you're probably going to have a draw more than a submission. But when you have, like, Metamoris, what I would like to see is maybe do 20 minutes of submission only and then do, like, a 10-minute match after, if it is a draw, of points. So there always is going to be a winner. I hate the fact that it's always going to be a draw,
right.
If there's no submission. Or get rid of the time.
Right.
It's submission only, we're going for an hour.
Right.
Somebody's going to get tired. Eventually somebody's going to make a mistake. I've seen matches go submission only going, an hour and a half at some of these grappling tournaments, in Jersey. So why not just let them go, Especially like a main event like that. I would have liked to see it go until there was a winner. If you want to do the undercard, say 20 minutes, if there's a draw, there's a draw. But, that main event, man, submission only, we could be there until 1 o'clock in the morning. Let's do it.
Now, would you like to see a judge's decision in some of these Metamoris matches, like kind of the way the judges scored in mixed martial arts, how we have the 3 judges and then they score the fight? I don't know what the criteria would be, but would you like to see that, or is that too close to a point system?
It could, but then it's all on what are the judges judging.
Right.
What's the criteria? If there's no points, it's only effective grappling, maybe submission attempts, then it would be the same thing kind of as points,
Right. Now, you really don't discriminate when it comes to submissions. You attack the neck, you attack the arms, you attack the legs. What would you say is your best submissions? Are you more of a leg guy? Are you a chokes guy? Are you an arm, Kimura, armbar, that type of guy? What would you say?
I would say chokes. I like to get to the back and attack from the back.
Well, you're very balanced. I mean, usually when we see a lot of guys, we see them, mostly like there's a leg lock guy, and then there's the guy who goes for chokes. But your record seems very, very balanced. So I'm very impressed by that, I must say. Anyway, Sean, April 19th, you're going to be taking on Nick Hanshin. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
I think it's going to be a great challenge. He's got a lot of submissions. I think he's got 13 out of 14 wins by submission.
Right.
He also seems like he hits submissions from everywhere, so he seems like a real scrappy fighter. So I'm excited to, test my jiu-jitsu pretty much against his, even though I know, he says he comes from like a Muay Thai school and he's a wild striker, but I mean, bottom line, you got 13 out of like 14 wins by submission. You're going to be classified as a submission guy, regardless how you come out swinging or throwing kicks. So it's probably my biggest test to date as far as against a jiu-jitsu guy. Quality of jiu-jitsu, I don't know, because I did fight a jiu-jitsu black belt who's won numerous of titles in Sadico Honorio. But, I mean, MMA is just different. Your jiu-jitsu for MMA, when you get punched in the face, it's completely different. So I'm really excited, and I know CFFC does the best to bring in, the top prospects, So I think it's going to be an exciting fight for the fans and a good test of my skills.
What do you think this fight looks like? Because, like you just mentioned, he has 13 wins by submission. You have 9 wins by submission. Usually when we see two guys who are really good on the ground, it cancels out and it just becomes a stand-up fight. What do you think it looks like? Do you see the fight being played mostly on the ground, or do you think it'll cancel out?
I think it's going to go to the ground. It's obviously our comfort zone. So if anything happens where we feel like the fight's going the other way, we're going to do what we do best, which is obviously grapple. And then we'll find out if his jiu-jitsu is on the same level as mine. I personally haven't competed against anybody in MMA that their jiu-jitsu was on the same level as mine, at least in my opinion. So, if he leaves something out there, I'm taking it, whether it's a neck, an arm, but I'm not gonna stay away from striking either,
Right. Now, it's been basically a year since we've seen you in action. Your last fight was May 11th, 2013. When you step into the cage, it'll be April 19th, but basically a year you've been out of action. Just curious why?
I had a knee injury when I was teaching, and I had to take some time off, so, the doctor said I was cleared to go back. I had to do some physical therapy and stuff like that, and once he gave me the okay, we were ready to go, so that was the main thing. It's just an old nagging injury that just got worse.
Now, you haven't lost since October of 2011, but since then, you're on a 5-fight win streak with, I believe, 3 finishes in this win streak that you're on. What did you learn from that loss, and what has allowed you to put together such a nice streak?
Well, that loss was against Aljamain Sterling at 135.
Right.
And it was my first fight at CFFC, and I was fighting at a weight class, so what it pretty much did was open my eyes to realize, that these guys are a little too big, and regardless skill set, you get 2 guys, and, there's like a 20-pound difference, because I was walking around at 135, and these guys are cutting from 55, 60. That size becomes a factor, and Aljamain was a great wrestler, and it kind of nullified my jiu-jitsu. Even though I had my opportunities, he was just a bigger, stronger fighter. So it made me realize that, I should definitely get back to like a normal weight class. And being that the UFC opened up 25, I jumped on it. So I definitely learned that, it was pretty much, I was fighting out of my weight class, and now that I fought at 125, I've pretty much, been undefeated and have a nice little streak going.
How many fights have you had at 125?
7 fights, I believe.
Okay. And
6 and 1. My flyweight debut, I lost to a guy. The weight cut didn't go. I had some personal issues, and the kid was just tough.
Was that the Josh Rave fight?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of experience came in. Good wrestler. We grappled pretty much the whole time, and just a lot of things kind of went wrong for that fight.
Oh, I see. Now, you're tied for the record of most title defenses in CFFC history. You're tied with George Sullivan with 4. I'm just curious, how do you take having this record? Because obviously, I'm sure you're very proud of yourself because you've been able to hold on to the belt and you've defended it multiple times. I know you're happy that you have it still, but at the same time, you having this record and having that belt means that you're not fighting in the UFC or another big show. Just curious, how do you take having this record or sharing this record?
Oh, I mean, it's obviously an honor to have it. It gets frustrating because it's like, after you defend the title like 3 or 4 times, you're like, okay, maybe next fight. And I've been saying that for, the last like year and a half. Like maybe the next fight I'll get a call. And so it does get frustrating, but I try not to let it bother me. My time will come, and I'm just, training to get better. And so when that phone call does come, I will be ready, and I can give it my all.
You're one of the guys who is basically the last top guy outside the UFC out there. I mean, you've been the top guy for a while now. There's been like the guys who are below you, let's say the top 5 guys. You're the only guy who doesn't get signed. You've been the top guy, and it's not by default. You've been the top guy for a while now. It's not like there's been 10 guys ahead of you were number 11, and since those 10 guys got signed, you're number 1 now. You've been number 1 for a while, and for whatever reason, the UFC signs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They sign the guys below you. what's been the negotiations like with UFC? What's something that they've been telling you and your manager? Why aren't you signed there? Because you're clearly, at least in my opinion, you're clearly the top guy outside the UFC, and I had you ranked ahead of some of the guys who they just recently signed. So what's been the dialogue with them?
It was pretty much my injury, to be honest with you. They weren't. They called my manager a couple of times asking if I could take the fight, and I wasn't physically able to actually take the fight, and my doctor wouldn't clear me. So, I did end up getting a call to see when a couple of people got hurt. But now I'm ready to go. So, if somebody gets hurt or they're looking to sign somebody, I'll be ready. I could be ready tomorrow if I had to. So hopefully I just get that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have this fight coming up on April 19th, but when exactly were you ready for a fight? Like, when were you 100% healthy to start taking fights? Obviously, they're putting on you a card in April, but when were you looking for a fight?
Well, once I started getting to my next stage in my physical therapy, I met with my doctor, and I went back to training pretty much everything, full-time, taking sparring 100% with no restrictions. And then I talked to my manager and my trainers, and we said a full month of hard, sparring, and then we'll see how that goes, and then we can schedule a fight, 6 to 7 weeks out from there. So that's pretty much what we did, and, we agreed that the April show would be great, especially being it's local. So I've been training back since February 1st in my camp. Mm-hmm. So you figure the middle of January, beginning of January is when we decided that I was going to go back and train as hard as I could and no restrictions. And then, pretty much the first week of February is when we decided that we'd go for April.
Mm-hmm. Now, Zach Makovsky, he's someone who fought on the CFFC 24 card, the same one that you fought on your last fight that you fought on back in May. You guys fought on the same card, so a lot of people thought that was timing up, that your next title defense would be against him, but of course you got injured, and then he went to RFA, and then eventually he went to the UFC. Was that the only reason why you guys didn't fight, is because you got injured, or was there another reason? Because a lot of people were saying that he was ducking you, he didn't want the fight, maybe he would eventually want the fight, but just not on the regional circuit. He wanted to take it on a bigger show where it would be in front of more people and for bigger pay. What is the whole story there? Because a lot of people say that he was running away from you, but then there's some people who say that it was your injury. So what's the story here?
Yeah, no, Zach definitely wasn't ducking me. We had a contract. We were supposed to fight, and I ended up getting hurt. We were actually supposed to fight in October, and because of my injury, I wasn't able to fight. Some of his fans thought I was actually ducking him, and stuff like that, which, obviously not, because I haven't fought, since last May. So, and I've never turned down a fight against anybody, and I'm sure he hasn't either. So I was really looking forward to it, because that would have been my toughest match, coming, from Bellator and being a champ for so long. No, we were both ready to go, and, I see him at other regional fights, and we talk. So we're on a friendly basis, We would hope that fight would happen in the UFC, but being the champ, I don't get to pick and choose my opponents. I'm the top guy at CFFC, so whoever they bring in is who I'm going to fight. It doesn't matter if it's an ex-UFC champ or ex-Bellator champ or whoever they bring in. That's the top contender. Number one is who I'm going to fight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, you mentioned that it's frustrating, that you've been out of action for a little while now, and the division has moved on without you. I mean, there's guys who, like I mentioned earlier, ranked below you that are now fighting in the UFC. But is it difficult for you to watch some of these guys? Like, obviously, you were supposed to fight Zach Makovsky, and had you beaten him, you'd be in the position that he is now, fighting in the UFC. When you see some of these guys who are signed to the UFC and see them fighting, when you watch those, what happens to you? What goes on in your mind when you see some of these guys who are ranked below you fighting in there?
Yeah, I try not to look too much into it. A lot of my teammates and stuff like that always kind of throw that in there. Right. I can't believe that these guys are fighting and you're not there. Mm-hmm. But like I said, my time will come, so I just got to take one fight at a time, like I've been doing. I can't overlook Nick, because he's got 20 fights, 13 submissions. I mean, I overlook him, and then there goes the UFC, So my main thing is getting by him, putting on a good performance as a comeback, and then, hopefully getting signed by the UFC, and then, the sky's the limit from there.
Mm-hmm. At this point, is it CFC or UFC for you? Like, would you be open to a World Series of Fighting? Because I know they said that they just made a flyweight division. They haven't signed much talent to it yet, but they said they're looking to acquire some guys. Is it just basically, if you're not in the UFC, you just stick with the CFFC because you're their champion?
Yeah. I mean, the CFFC has treated me so good, and it's such a well-run production that it'd be pointless for me to go anywhere else unless it was going to benefit me like night and day, But ultimately, when you get into MMA, everybody's eyes are on the UFC. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
Right. Now, Sean, last question. I'm just curious, who's going to be cornering you for this fight? Because your head coach, Mike Constantino, he's the president of CFFC, so I think that's a conflict of interest if he's cornering you and running the show. So who's going to be cornering you for the fight?
My last couple fights, I've transitioned to Brian McLaughlin. He's been really my head trainer. He pretty much runs my camp, and him and Mike will oversee things. But I work one-on-one a lot with Brian and Jimmy Miller. So Brian's pretty much my head MMA coach, and he does all the game planning and stuff like that. So I'm going to have him as my head coach, and then I have my striking coach, Nick Avalos. And then just a couple teammates that I train with that kind of know what I do and know my movements. But the main person is Brian. If he's in my corner, I pretty much feel comfortable because I really work everything all around with him.
Oh, I see. Well, Sean, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Just if anybody's interested in still getting tickets, they can contact me on Facebook or Twitter, Shorty Rock _ 125 on Twitter, or Short Jitsu on Facebook. And that's it. Just I appreciate all the support and all the love, especially for us little guys making a name for ourselves.
Sean, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it, and best of luck coming up on the 19th.
Thanks for the opportunity.